Hey, this is Therese. This is the Fearless and Soulful Sales. It's April 1st, and I promise this is not an April Fool's thing. Yes, so I was going to have a group call where I taught this workshop style, and things changed. Got on the call today with the women that were present, and it was really clear, like, nope, we're just going to do some coaching, and I'm going to record this and send it later. And whenever I follow guidance, magical things happen. So my guidance is I'm just going to record this presentation for you. And here's what I will say: ask me questions, right? Like, because this is normally I would record this and it would be interactive, but most of the people that sign up actually listen to replays. And so I'm hey, you replay people, ask me questions. I'm super available. I'm an expert, and I love to have people go, hey, I liked that video. Tell me more about that, or this is what I got out of it. So I'm just inviting you as you're watching this, ask me questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and forth between PowerPoint and then just I come back in, we have a conversation. Okay, so always when I teach, I teach a lot of like, here's what the problem is, here's why, and here's the fix. And I want to make sure that in your mind it's like a shame-free zone, right? Because here's the deal. I think a lot of people with selling are like, I hate it, it's terrible. And we're going to talk about that. And there can be shame kicked in that you don't like it as much, or you're not as good at it, or whatever. And I'll share my selling stories with you. But um, just take the information of like, cool. Don't use it to beat yourself up, right? Because my goal is to have you be super, super empowered in just like absolute. I could have a selling conversation like that and feel great about it. Okay. So um, what I teach a lot of is not, not, I know there's a trend like, oh, I don't want to have any sales calls. I just want to, just coach people. I'm sorry, enroll people on Messenger. That's totally cool. I am kind of a relational weirdo, and I want to talk to everybody that I want to put in my program. So if you're expecting me to teach you how to, I'm always going to direct a conversation. Now, if you're selling, a $97 thing, you don't need to talk to every single person. But if you're selling a higher price item, or if you're, maybe if you're a massage therapist, I don't know if you're going to do discovery calls with that stuff. But so this work is how you think about selling, like the mindset of selling, how you set the call up. And so it's literally how to have a call. It's not how do I get people to be interested in me? That's a marketing situation. And I have stuff on marketing, but this is when somebody says, how do I work with you? That's when I start. That's when my magic happens. Okay, let me go to a share. So I'm just going to pop a few slides, right? So here's the first one. Here's the first one. When I think of the word sales, I feel. Okay. So I want you to, if you were with me in this Zoom room right now, I would say, okay, tell me what you feel. Tell me what you feel. And here's what I usually hear. Here's what I usually hear. Sleazy, pushy, like dishonest, manipulative, right? So that's where we start, because so many of us have been programmed literally to go, selling, sales. And we all have had, the reason is we've all had experiences of that, of the icky, sleazy, gross, like, stops, disingenuous, icky, right? And if you think about it, from the time you're a little child, like if you had a toddler and little Amy walks up to, her uncle and says, Uncle John, how much money do you make? Mommy would say, we don't ask people about their money, or if little Sally walks up to a neighbor and says, could I have some cookies? Sometimes a parent would say, don't ask. So we literally are trained from the time we're children to not be bold, to not ask, and particularly women. Don't even get me started about this. Women in particular have been taught from time, in the beginning, to basically put your needs met second. You don't want to be bothered. You don't want to be a burden. You don't want to be too much, right? So here you go in business, and you're helping people in the world, is related to having a conversation whereby they can go, oh my gosh, I totally want to hire you. And then there's all those messages and the training. So that's why this is so important. All right. So I'm just going to go through. So I want you to, number one, if you could reframe the word selling or sales, that would be a game changer. And what happened for me, I'll tell you a little of my story, and I'll maybe more as we go. I was working in a coaching, so got out of let's back up. I was a therapist for 20 some years, have a master's degree, did that for 20 years, loved it. And then in 2001, I went to life coaching school. And as a therapist, I had my private practice, but the rates were like $75, 150 an hour, not really outrageous. So it was a word of mouth practice. Plus, I had young kids. And so I didn't really care to market it. I didn't need to market it. I just had a few clients because my focus was on with my kids. It was kind of a part-time, wasn't even a business. It was kind of a practice, right? So I was a part-time worker in my practice while a mom. So then I go to life coaching school, and then eventually I go to business coaching school. That's a crazy story for another day. And suddenly I have to make cold calls, and I have to enroll people in a coaching package that back in 2000 and I don't know, 3, 4, whatever it was $585 a month. And I'm like, I can't ask for that. And so I had all these cold calls, and I think I did like 50 cold calls before anybody said yes to me, because I had a whole bunch of it was terrible. So I got a client. I finally figured out this. Okay. And then I'm doing the coaching company, and then I was in my own practice, and I was like, I can coach my ass off. Like I'm getting pretty good at the coaching, but I couldn't sell no matter what I did, because I'd be coaching. Then I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry to ask, but do you think you could work with me? I would be really small. I would not stand for them. I wasn't bold at all. I don't want to be bothered. Oh God, I hate to ask about money. I don't want to push. So I had all this stuff, all this mindset stuff. And I had sales training, really good sales training, fantastic sales training from the best trainers ever. It was like 10 pages of a script. And I'm a smart girl and I can read a script. And I'm like, I couldn't do it. So what I discovered is I actually got to go through that experience, because then I'm like, oh, it's not that I don't know how to read a script. It's not that I'm not a good coach. It's I got my own mindset stuff. I am so afraid of bothering somebody. I'm terrified of asking for money. I'm so I know the rules. I know the game because I've been there. And then I put it all together, and I created like a 5-step formula that is like, oh my gosh, this is it. If you can master these 5 things, 2 of them are about you and like the inner game pieces. And you know what I mean? So some of them are about you, and some are the doing, and some are the being and the tactical pieces, right? And I have like whole workshops on this thing because I've taught this for so long. It's one of my favorite things to teach, because so many women really struggle with it. So that's my story. That's how I get to teach this, because I've overcome it, and I've taught so many students to be like, I love selling now, because you can. All right. So the first one is, what is your idea about selling? Let's reframe it. What's a better frame? So when I was at that coaching company 20 some years ago, and I was like, oh, I can't sell anything, right? The founder of the coaching company said, do you like to serve? And I'm like, dude, that's what I live for. He goes, the root of the word selling basically is to serve, right? So the way I frame it, instead of like, oh wait, I have to sell you something, that's transactional. That's like I have to get you to give me money, which sometimes it feels like it's manipulative, and then I get all goofy and codependent, and I don't want to take your money. This was the old me. But when it was framed like, oh, this is the next necessary thing that has to happen so I can serve you. I love to serve. I'm wired. Oh, I can serve. So when I teach a selling conversation, it's literally, this is also serving. Even the selling conversation, even if they don't say yes to it, it's serving. They're going to have a breakthrough. They're going to learn something, and I'll walk you through all that stuff. So if you reframe it, like, I get to have a selling call because I get to serve you. Right. And so selling to me is absolute service. It's not sleazy. It's not salesy. I'm totally authentic. There's no part of me. And I'm just assuming that about you. You're not trying to manipulate. You're not trying to, get something over. You're just a good person doing your great work, and you want to know how to enroll a little bit better, right? Okay, you're in the right place. Let me take a sip of water. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the screen share. Okay, we're sharing again. All right, so let me find the right slides. Okay, so when you feel sleazy and salesy, let me just show you. So this is what can interfere with the selling process. Okay, number one, and I think it's important because, again, I like to give big picture. Okay, you're working with the wrong people. Right. So maybe you're working with an audience that you're like, I don't really love them, or I don't know that much about it. So are the people you're trying to attract and sell to, they could be the wrong people. The biggest one is not understanding your value. And that correspondingly, that's step one in my formula. Okay. And I'll talk a lot about that. You don't understand, because in my mind, when I first started, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm charging $585 a month. What I didn't know is somebody pays that for 6 months, they could 10x that, they could 15x, 20x it, because they didn't have enough experience, right? And I didn't own my value. And when you don't own your value, it's really hard. Like I say, it's hard to sell something you don't own, right? When you're like, is it? Because then your mind goes to the transaction, like, oh my gosh, this is X amount an hour, and can I deliver? As opposed to, I can tell you what's possible. And we're going to talk a lot about this one. What also can interfere is you might not have the right sales structure in place, right? So in the olden days, I'd be ready to pick up my kid, and the phone would ring and I'd answer it, and they'd say, hi, how much does it cost to work with you? And I'd be like, oh, blah, 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 right? You never do that, by the way. I didn't have a structure in place. And so I would just wing it, and it was terrible. And so now I have an actual structure that I will show you that will make the whole thing more solid. And you from the beginning will be perceived as like, I'm in charge of this, and this is how the conversation is going to go. And I got you. Not like letting them determine, and you go down rabbit holes and you're like, shoot, now we're talking about their cousin when they lived in Tennessee in the third grade. Where do I go now? Right. So if you have the structure right, it's very easy to kind of like, oh, okay, perfect. Now I understand. You might have, not you might, you probably have mindset or energy blocks. I know I did. Anybody that doesn't want to be a bother, is afraid to ask, is afraid to go deeper with them, is fearing rejection. Seriously, what I discovered is that here's how you do the structure, here's the questions you ask, those are easy. This is the piece that gets people, and this is my genius. And so this is why when I would teach people this part of it, they get better. Okay, the other one is you back off of the offer. So that's what I did. I'd be this phenomenal coach standing for them, and then I'd be like really tiny, and I would shrink back, and I'd be like, did you want to work with me? And they'd say, I have to think about it. I'd go, okay, bye. you know so like how to handle an objection, and how to be as bold with your offer, like, because that's what happens. Like, let's say you do a really beautiful discovery call where you're asking all the questions and you're tracking and they're feeling held, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I have to ask you to work with me now, and then you energetically leave the room. Like, that's no good for anybody. So I want you to think right now, what is it for you? Like, what's the thing? What stops you? Maybe it's just all these. Is there anything else? So take a moment. Is there anything else? Okay. Because it's when you understand what the problem is, then you can go, okay, cool. Now I can fix it. And this webinar will be part of how you're going to fix it. Okay. So the way I do this in the olden days, I used to go, okay, here's part of my formula, step 1, step 2, step 3. And I would just go through the whole thing. But I got kind of creative, and I'm like, let's show you where it's breaking down, right? So there's just like, this is where it breaks down. Oh, and here's how you correct it, right? So I changed up the way I teach. So we're going to start with breakdown number 1. Okay. Now I will say also, I generally work with women, and I generally work with service-based women. It's probably you. You sell yourself as the service, right? So it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm selling shoes. Would you like to buy these shoes? Or I'm selling somebody else's services. When you are it, hello, that can be a little challenging. Okay. Because the subconscious, like, and I'll talk a lot about everything I do, I talk about the subconscious is like, when you sell somebody else, you're like, oh my God, she's so fantastic. You have to go see her. Seriously, seriously, you got to see my friend Sarah. She's amazing. And then you talk about yourself, you're like, I'm okay. I don't want to brag. See what I mean? See how it shifts? And so when you talk about you, there's the parts that hold back in the visibility, in the boldness, in the asks. There's a lot of parts that hold back. Okay. So breakdown number one, you charge for the work instead of the magic you bring. So the work is, well, I charged, like, I'm going to see her 2 hours. I'm just making these numbers up, right? I'm going to see her 2 hours. That would be, $400 a month. Let's say that, right? So that's the transaction. So she's going to be paying $400 for 2 hours a month, and I'm going to see her for 4 months. That's da 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 da. That's transactional. And what I know is that whenever you focus on the transaction, the gremlin part in your mind, like the part that's going to be like, really, like the subconscious that tries to keep you safe, small, stuck, is going to bite you. And so that can look like you get those little voices like, are you freaking kidding? Like, really, what could you can charge? That's right. It just talks you out of it. So I remember years ago when I shifted from, I used to do everything. Like, I did business coaching. I would help you with your copywriting. I would help you design your programs. I would help, with marketing. I did traditional business stuff and some energy and mindset stuff. And then I was working with some people that branded me, and they said, don't do any business coaching. Just do the energy work. Well, the problem is I'm very fast in the energy work. And I didn't own, this was like 6 years ago. I didn't own my value. I didn't know, because I hadn't owned it, right? You can't sell what you don't own. And they're like, nope, you don't say you're a business coach. You focus on energy and emotions. And I couldn't sell it because I'm like, it takes me 15 minutes. And a friend said, so what's the problem there? I'm like, well, I'm used to giving hours and overgiving and doing so much more. And my friend's like, yeah, but if I can get in a 15-minute session when I could have gotten in 5 hours, that's way more valuable. But my little brain didn't tell me that. So I wasn't focusing on the magic. I was focusing literally on the transaction, the time components, right? So, okay. So when you do that, when you don't focus on the magic and you try to focus on, can they afford it? Gremlins, as opposed to, this is my gift from God. This is what's possible. Like, oh my gosh, this is what's possible when I get to do my work. That's owning your value. So this is where money is made or lost. And so here's how it plays out. And I want you to see if you can see yourself, right? You don't charge enough. Hello, most of us can charge more. You play small. You feel guilty asking for more. You don't see the results you should. You tend to back down. You get thrown off by objections, and you have a hard time packaging or talking about what you do. Now, that one, sometimes you've changed and you're like, that's obsolete messaging. But the other ones, the middle ones, they're all about, you're not owning your value. You don't know how to articulate your value. If somebody says that seems high, you might, oh, sorry, as opposed to, yeah, it is. This is why, right? And so that's when I work with people, these are the things I work on. So let me give you the fix. Here's the fix. Okay, I want you to, as we say, think like Picasso. And this is such a fantastic, fantastic little anecdote. Okay, so imagine, I gotta take myself here. I need to see full screen for this one. So Picasso's in a cafe on a corner, and somebody walks up, they recognize Picasso, and they say, oh my gosh, Picasso, oh my gosh, I got to get props here. Oh my gosh, could you sketch me something? And Picasso, big Picasso goes, here, madam. I'm just making this up, right? But it's like that. And he goes, she's just like, oh, that's so magnificent. Oh, Picasso, thank you. How much would you charge? And he said, that'll be $10,000. And she goes, but that just took you 2 minutes. And he said, no, that took me my whole life. Let that sink in. The work you do The gifts you have has taken you your whole life. Now, I've been a coach for 20 years. I was a therapist for 20 years before that. So I literally have 4 decades. But you don't have to have 4 decades. Like, so for me, I could say, Therese, 4 decades. You get to charge what you want to charge because you have 4 freaking decades. Maybe you've had 3 years. Maybe you're new in the business, but you had a great career over here. Maybe your greatest credentials are that you freaking survived and you made it through and you want to help other people, right? So your whole life, it doesn't have to be accredited school, degrees, certifications. The things that often give the most credibility and the most soulfulness is what you live through. That makes sense? Like, I really need you to hear that because it's easy to say, yeah, but I haven't, like, I haven't done it long enough, or I haven't had enough clients. I get it. But what have you done? What is the magic of you? And so sometimes this work is just literally discovering that what do I bring? What is my magic? What do people get with me? It's kind of that intangible thing. Because we could say, oh, they get 3 hours a month and no, 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 no. Shh. What do they get? What do they get? Maybe they get seen. Maybe they have somebody that finally holds them with such beautiful love and unconditional and acceptance. It's like it changes things, right? That's what I want you to think about. Okay, I gotta get the share again. So what happens is you're not knowing your value. You need to think like Picasso. And like I said earlier, focus on the transformation, not just the transaction. And then focus on the lifetime shift. So for example, I just got off of a call and it was a selling call, right? So woman writes me a nice note and I'm guided. I pick up my pencil and I say, hold on, wait a second. Can I work on this? This isn't even supposed to be a coaching call, but can I work on this? And it was about basically her receiving support to grow her business. Within 5 minutes, I identified absolutely the age that it happened, the way out, strategies. Now I know, had she not worked with me, she would still be stuck. She would not be able, she would experience the same results she had, which would be burnout, a slow growth, boom, 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 boom. And I know, and this, again, this was just a free call, but just say, imagine she paid me $400 for that. Just imagine it was a session, she paid $400. What I know is from that one shift, she could easily make 4,000, 40,000, double that next year, next year, next year. Like the lifetimes, because we think about hourly, or gosh, if I give a 3-month package, think about once they get what you have, the lifetime value of that. Like that's the thing. It's like, oh my gosh, the impact that that little 5-minute session had on the woman I just saw, game changing, game changing. That will change her life. So I want you to be in that place of what kind of work do I do that is life changing? Okay. Taking a sip of water. Hold on, I got to put my charger cord in. Okay. Okay. So breakdown number 2, you're selling their services instead of selling their dream. So when people call you and say, hi, how can I work with you? The way I conduct sales conversations and the way people get fearless and soulful is they don't just go, okay, it's a 90-day program. We have 3 calls a month. It'll be on Zoom and I'll send you the recording and you'll get notified ahead of time. And that's $1,000. Does that sound good? That's what most people do. How can I work with you? What are your services? Boom. That's what most people do. So in essence, I said I had a 5-step formula. Step 1 is to own your value. Step 2 is dig for their dream. So if somebody comes in to ask me about like, okay, I want to hire you as my coach, I don't say, cool, it'll be blah, 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 blah. I don't go the transactional stuff. I say, awesome. What are you looking to create? And I'm gonna get to the fix on and the next part is the how to do it. But if you sell the service instead of the dream, they're immediately like you haven't given them enough juice to where they're like, oh my gosh, I have to have that, right? So what we do is we get anxious and we go in for the sale too. So we either like da da da, and we just tell them the features and the cost of that. We go in for the sale too quickly, right? Oh, you want to grow your business? Okay, that's $1,000, right? you haven't structured the conversation right, because it's my hypotheses that this conversation is and it's an example of what it would be like to work with you. So I don't make it any distinction of like, I'm having a coaching call. Oh, I'm having a selling call. I have to sell. I show up the same way. I give the same way. Like, again, I just did a discovery call, and in 10 minutes, I'm like, hold on. Do you mind if I pick up my pendulum? Because we have to fix this piece. Let me just clear that for you. Boom, boom, boom. And she's just like, I, she literally said, I feel so seen. That happened in a free call. I expect things like that to happen, right? Because I don't rush in, and I know, so I'm going to dig for the dream. I'm going to go for the dream, and I'll tell you more about that in the next slide. Also, you might think that you know what they want and mean. So I'll give you an example. Somebody says, I want to make more money. In my mind, I'm like, they're planning for their retirement. Okay, that's perfect. And they want to work really hard. And so in my mind, I could say, well, of course, that's what you need. I always ask, okay, so you want to build your business. Why? Tell me why it matters. Oh, I just want to have money to go see my kids and to be on vacation. Okay. See what I mean? So you don't want to just assume if somebody says, I want to have a relationship, you don't want to go, cool, let's coach you on that. Or I want to get healthy, or I want to you don't want to just go, okay, here's the cost. You want to go, awesome. Tell me more about that. Because your dream, me wanting more money might be this is what I would get, but you might wanting more money. So you don't want to assume. And this is like the toddler. Tell me more. And what else? And why does that matter to like, so maybe it's because I'm Irish and I got the gift of I literally kissed the Blarney Stone when I was there in 74. I can't do a 15-minute discovery. I don't know how anybody can do a 15, unless somebody's sold and says, I know I want to work with you. How do we make it happen? But if somebody says, I'm considering work, I'm talking to you and a few other people, I can't do 15 minutes because I need to know all the things. I have to understanding. You're not just growing your business, you're growing it to show your daughters what women can do. You're growing it to fund your trip to Ireland next year. You're growing it to, get away from the bankruptcy you had 5 years ago so you can finally prove yourself. Like, see what I mean? All those details matter a lot. And so you want to be asking. Okay. So step one, own your value. Step two, dig for the dream. And let me find the fix part, because the fix part is pretty cool. All right, fix is no one wants to buy your services. So that woman that inquired to me about, I want to talk to you about coaching just earlier, she wanted to be seen. She wanted to have somebody hold her vision. She wanted to have a partner on the journey. She wanted somebody to believe in her and have, see what I mean? She wasn't buying coaching. The coaching is the vehicle, the delivery route of the magic. So what is it for you? When you are selling your services, yes, you're selling your whatever package, healing, coaching, whatever it is, what is it that they're really buying? If you can articulate that for yourself, that will help. You set up the call correctly. Here's how I set up the call. Wait, I'll just tell you that now. So let me just go that, because that's a super important one. So you always want to basically say, hi. So let's just say Amy is she's having a call with me. So hey, Amy. So let me back up. What I do ahead of time is there's a form. Fill out this form. Why? Number one, I don't want to work with anybody that is not willing to spend 3 minutes to fill out a form. They're not going to be a good fit. Number two, on my form, I have a little blurb so they answer some questions. And then there's this is what I charge, this range to this range, just so you know ahead of time. And my range right now is like $147 at the low end to thousands at the high end, right? Group and private. So I let them know that, because I don't want anybody to be like, oh, I thought it would be like $100 a month when I didn't have the lower level community that would happen. So they know ahead of time. Fill out a form. They know ahead of time. Then we book a call. We're on Zoom. And then I say, Amy, all right. So like, and I can do, rapport things like, where are you from? What's it like there? You always want to kind of start rapport, like getting a little bit rapport, because I want to be as relational as possible. My goal when I set this container up, container is how I hold it. I want the client, the prospective client, to feel so safe. Like, because here's what happens. A lot of people have never been in a selling call and they don't know what to do. And so if you just go, hi, okay, they don't know where to go. That is unconsciously anxiety producing for them. And then they just talk about blah, 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 right? So the way I frame it, this is exactly what I say. So number one, rapport building. Number two, you could ask why they decided to have a conversation and why now. Why you and why now? That's just really good to know, right? Oh, I've been watching you for a while, and that last email you wrote, good data, right? It's just good to know. You don't have to ask that, but I like those two questions. And then the fourth one is this is how I do it. I say, okay, so I'm just confirming that we are here to talk about you potentially hiring me. Is that right? Because I've actually had somebody that was like, no, I'm like, oh, okay, you want us to I jumped in a selling call because that's what she filled the form out for. But hey, so just say, just confirming that this conversation is going to be about how we could potentially work together, right? Okay. So then I say, there's one thing that's really important, and it just kind of came to me one day to say it. I say, okay, here's the thing. I just want to set some ground rules. Number one, I'm looking for specific things. So you filled out the form. I have that. I'm going to ask you some questions, but here's what I want you to know. I might be interrupting you because it's not that my mama didn't teach me good manners, but there's certain things I'm tracking. Now, why do I do that? Because people get freaking chatty and they go down rabbit holes. And I don't want you being a nice girl, like waiting, going, I can't interrupt. Oh no, interrupt. Otherwise, you're going to be talking about, their cousins that live in Tennessee. I mean, it's just like, so when you say ahead of time, just letting you know, and that gives you permission to go, oh, okay, hold on just one. Can we get back to that part about da 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 da? Because seriously, you do not want them on rabbit holes where you're just sitting there hoping they rein themselves in, because they don't know how to be in discovery calls sometimes. They don't know. Again, you have to tell them how it's going to be done, and they're anxious, and so they're right now to help the anxiety. So I get agreement on that. To help the anxiety, here's what I do. I think, can we just have this one? Let's just do this, okay? Can you agree with me with this? Because I remember when I was in the dating world, I'd call somebody and the night would end and I'm like, are they going to call me? Am I supposed to call them? And I hate that. I just don't like that. I don't want to do that at all. So I want us to be really clear with each other. Just really like, so do we have permission? If either of us decide this is not a good fit, we're just going to say that at the end, right? Like that way, you don't have to worry if it's not going to work, that I'm going to hate you and judge you. And I don't have to worry, like, God, what if it, like, can we just say that? And what happened is the first time I kind of accidentally did that, I never heard of that anywhere before. The person was like, oh, God, that feels so good. See, because in a selling conversation, they're like, oh, what if I have to tell her no? What if I have to tell her? And we're all nice girls and we don't want to disappoint and we want to be helpful and we want to say yes, right? But we don't know. Maybe we don't know the rates and we don't know the process. And we're like, there's an anxiety of what if I have to say no? If I say in the beginning, you get to tell me no, okay? And I can tell you no. That way at the end, I'm not hearing, well, I don't know, I might have to think about it. Now, legit, sometimes they do have to think, but it's not an excuse to dip without having a conversation. And literally, everybody just is like, oh, that feels so good. Okay, that's how I set the call up. And then I move into tell me what you want to create. I move into helping create the dream. Okay, let me go back to my share here. Okay, so they're creating the dream. I'm embellishing it. So again, it's not like, okay, so you want to grow your business, cool. Yeah, you'll have a good year. I believe in you. That's $10,000. That's not what I do. And so I'll tell you a story here. And here's what I believe. So many of us, I have been personally many years in such bad survival. There was no dreaming, there was just surviving, right? We get focused on our kids or other activities or maybe parents or whatever. And we're like, yeah, whatever. I don't know. I just got to do this. And I think sometimes we've just not been trained to dream. We have forgotten how to dream. And if somebody like reflects that back. It's like, so that's the being. And now this is how I do it, right? And many of you are like me because you're on my calls and you're gonna, So I'll tell you a story. I'm changing the name. So Jim comes to me and says, I want to grow my business. And I didn't say, okay, it's $5,000, Jim. I said, okay, cool. Why? What matters about that? And he said, now again, this is a process of like a 10-minute conversation. I'm just shortening it. But I want to show you, I don't go, I want to grow my business. Cool, get your credit card. I go, I want to grow my business. Why? What would that get for you? What would it mean? What would it mean? What would it mean? And so I took Jim to this conversation and he said, my wife and I have had some really, really hard years. Like she has had to make so many sacrifices because we really struggled. It's been rough for the last few years. And I said, okay. And I said, and if you grew your business, what dollar amount? And I think he wanted $10,000 months. And I said, okay, what would you get? And he starts in, I could hire a VA. And I said, okay. And what else? So there's the tangible and intangible. Okay, what else? And he said, I could take my wife somewhere. And I think, okay, where? Do you see what I do? Go deeper, go deeper, go deeper. And he says, oh, she's always wanted to go on a cruise. I would take her to Alaska. And I literally saw this vision and it was so beautiful. So I'm just communicating what I saw. And I said, Jim, I want you to imagine you're on the deck of the ship and you're outside, your wife looking up at you, and she's just looking at you like, she's your hero. You're her hero. See, I get touched right now. And he's just like, oh. So that was an intangible thing. If I would have said, cool, Jim, I can get you $10,000 a month. That's going to be 6 months and I'll charge this much. He'd be like, okay. But if I could take him to the place where his wife would be like, oh, you did it. I'm so proud of you. Thank you. That's the bigger dream than 10. So he doesn't really want $10,000. He really, of course he wants $10,000, but what comes with it is what sold him. Does that make sense? So I take the dream and I give it back in a more embellished, magnificent, activated way. So oftentimes when I do that, people are like, they're salivating. They're like, how can I work with you? I didn't even talk to them about their problems. I just gave them the dream, right? So that's one way to do it. So remember, step one, own your value. Step two, dig for the dream. Now let's go to the third problem. Let me share this with you. Problem number three, breakdown number three. Okay, you're honoring your client's reality by not digging deep. So step three, after we dig the dream, we push the pain. Push the pain. And there's a little bit of, sometimes people don't like to go here. I'll talk a lot about that in a minute. And there's a lot of predatory marketing, the old style marketing where, you just must not want it badly enough. You're just like, you're never going to make it without me. If you don't have my services, I think you're going to probably, be a homeless cat lady. I'm not talking about that. And I'm aware that some people have been trained that you don't ask those hard questions. You don't ask the personal questions. I get it. I was a therapist. I've been doing this for 40 years. But you might not feel like, is it okay to ask this question? Like, is it like, I don't want them to feel bad about themselves if we talk about why they're failing. So we'll go there in a minute. So what happens here is in the discovery call, yes, some people are motivated by the dream. More people are motivated to get out of the pain. Like, I don't want to have, holy crap, I cannot have another 6 months like this. Like, yeah, that's cool being on a boat and all and having a nice vacation, but more people are motivated by getting out of the pain. But more people that are selling hate to talk about the pain. They're afraid to go in there. They feel like they're violating or they're right. So they don't take the time. They don't take the time to like, well, what's that cost you? How did that impact your family? What's going on? Like, they don't take the time to do that because they're afraid of it. And maybe you're in your own stuff. Maybe you were literally trained like, Like I come from this like crazy Irish family. There's no boundaries. Everybody knows everybody else's business, and we like everybody knows. And I was a therapist, so I'm like, what? Tell me why? What happened? How did that hurt? Oh my god! Whereas my partner, German, Midwestern, raised on a farm, like their business. We don't ask. And I'm like, how do you not ask? Jesus, right? So you might have been raised like my partner, and it's like I can't ask somebody about their money. Why I can't ask them how much like or their sex. Like I can't ask those questions. Okay. I'm not trying to push you into a place you can't go, but I'm trying to push you into a place you need to go. Right. So just observe your bias about I don't feel comfortable asking. And there's also like with my client Jim that I just told you about. Haven't established the ROI, the return on the investment of working with you, right? So I say pain cells. So I will give you an example here. So let's say I say to Jim, okay, I'm going to charge you $5,000. Okay. So tell me how much money have you lost by not getting your messaging right? Whatever the situation that Jim is in. And he'd say, oh, I probably, I don't know, I probably haven't enrolled 3 clients a month. And I'd say, okay. And what are you charging per client? And he'd say, well, I charge, 3,000 a client. And I'd say, okay, so that's 9,000 a month you've probably been losing. So imagine 6 months go by, 6 times 9, do the numbers, and I'm charging you five. So sometimes you haven't established like, wow, this situation you're in. Like one things I say is, I don't necessarily say that to them. Sometimes I might, but in my head, I go, if they don't work with me, what's the cost? What's the cost intangibly and tangibly? Now I know they don't have the confidence, they're not going to get the speed, they're going to be lost, they're going to just throw shit against the wall, they're going to try all these things. And the worst one yet, they're probably going to be influenced by some sleazy marketer that's going to sell them something that they're not equipped for and shouldn't even be in. And they're going to spend money. They're going to waste money. If they work with me, they'll get this. But I know the trajectory of and you could extrapolate. So if you're a health coach, if they don't work with me, they're going to have less energy. They're going to get sicker. They're going to get more like whatever. If you're a relationship coach, if you're an acupuncturist, whatever it is, you really should do this part if they don't work with me. Now, that also helps you own your value tremendously, right? Okay, let me go back. Let me go back to the share. So I'll give you the fix. This is an important part. I've kind of already talked about some of it. The fix, understand you're piercing the veil of denial. Okay, so if I'm going to go in, so somebody says, it just hasn't worked. I don't know why. Last year I was making 10,000 a month, and this year I'm down to 3,000. And then, so if I had the belief of I don't want to upset them, they can stay in denial. They don't have to look at anything. When I say I'm piercing the veil of denial, I can get in there and go to places where they're like, so for example, I will say, is it okay if I just, I've got some questions for you. Is it okay if I dive in and ask these questions? Get permission. And number two, when I ask questions like, why do you think you haven't made the money? And then I will say, there's no shame here. To me, it's just data. So I'm not holding you with any shame at all. I don't want you to hold yourself with shame. Okay. So and there's no part of me, it's seriously no part of me that's judging you. I'm just here. The more information we can get, the more I can be of service. Okay. So certain questions, why haven't you been able to achieve healthy weight loss? Why haven't you been able to achieve the relationship you want, whatever it is, or the money or the business? What has this cost you? This is so good because sometimes people are like, it's not that bad. It's not that. And you ask these questions and they're like, I'm done. I'm just done. Oh my God, I didn't realize because we get used to tolerating, especially as women, it's not that bad. Not that bad, not that bad, not that bad, not that bad. And we're freaking burning as opposed to, oh my God, somebody asked me these questions. So to me, what higher service than to help somebody discover why have you been tolerating this? And what if I could show you there's a way, right? What's this cost you mentally, emotionally, time? So it's the questions. And how do you make sense of this for yourself? I love that question. I love that because some people this way you'll get to know their mindset. Well, maybe I'm just lazy and I can't make it work. Or sometimes they'll say, I just haven't gotten the right support yet. Okay, cool. Here you are today, right? I think that's good to know. And the final one is, what else can't you do because you haven't achieved this? I love this question because to me, you can't take your business out of your life. So they come to me, I say, what else? And they'll say, well, I can't take my kids to Europe, or I can't save for retirement, or, I don't feel good about myself. I don't have the confidence. Super important data to know, right? So that's why you say, is it okay if I ask you questions? So own your value, dig for the dream, push their pain. But you got to get okay with that, right? Because if you're not okay with it, you can't be of service. So I want you to reframe it like, I'm asking these questions so I can, it's like, what I say is when you have awareness, you have choice. And sometimes when the unconscious is conscious, you can be like, whoa, oh my, I don't want to do that anymore. I gotta shit. I didn't know I was doing that. I'm done. I gotta stop. Like, right. So if done with gentleness and holding them with respect, this is magnificent. Okay, breakdown number 4. I love this. So own your value, dig for the dream, push their pain. And number 4 is roll out your offer. But here's the breakdown. So remember, I said when Jim came in, would have said, how much does it cost me to work with you? I'd say, okay, Jim, it's going to be $5,000. We'll meet 3 times a month. That's the services. Remember, I said earlier, nobody's buying the services. They're buying what you give them, the relationship, the container. And I'll give you absolute ways to think about that. So think about when somebody says, what do you offer? How can I work with you? Of course, you're going to have to tell them the price. And of course, you're going to have to tell them like the how. But are you doing anything to give them a sample? Like that woman earlier I spoke about, I just jumped in and said, okay, I got to just coach you right here. And she just was like, she now knows what it's like to work with me. Because I gave her sample. Now, you don't have to even give samples, but the way you conduct yourself in the call, the way you're present, witnessing, leading, an expert. This way you can sometimes tell stories like, oh yeah, I just worked with a client around the same issue, and that helps them. You're being like a fire hydrant, making your offer too soon. It's because you're anxious. So you come in owning your value, and then you dig the dream and go for the pain. And then there are ways in the next slide. I'm going to show you how to beautifully roll up their offer. But usually this is the part that makes people anxious, because it's easy to ask questions. And why do you want that? And what else? And what would you get? And why do you think it didn't happen? Now it's like gulp. Oh shit, I gotta tell you how much oh no. I'm just for money. Right. That's when it gets a little glitchy. And sometimes you might, as I say, get in their pockets. You might have already decided. Oh, they don't have any money. Oh shit, I can't ask them. Oh, I just heard that her husband got fired. What? So you're already in their pocket. So you talk yourself out of instead of leaning in. And I'm going to tell you what to do next. Okay, the fix. Paint the picture of what will and will not happen. So here's one way I would do it. There's multiple ways. And sometimes conversations literally just flow. Like the woman I had earlier in the call was just pretty much sold on me. Heard me other places, and she's like, I could tell she wanted to work with me. So it was just a matter of a little dazzle. Here's the program that was the best. Okay, that was it. I didn't have to do any of this with her. Sometimes people are like, well, I'm exploring, I've got like 3 other coaches I'm interviewing, or I'm just exploring options right now, and they're not as sold, right? Or they're in the earlier stages of discovery. Okay. So paint the picture of what or will not happen. So I could say, okay, I'll just pretend I'm Jim. Okay, Jim. So we already talked about you wanted to grow your business because, and I go to the Alaska ship. And then I would say, but what was in the way is boom, boom, boom. And what we discovered is what it really cost you was this and this and this. Okay. So then I would kind of, now we're going to move to a different part of the conversation. So I'd say, well, and I'm like the sickly child that was never chosen in PE when I was a little kid. So I love to be chosen. That just makes my heart, that makes my little inner 5-year-old just go like, oh, somebody wants me. And I think that's really powerful. Like I want to work with people that want me, not, oh, cool, I'll take your money. And so I might say why I would want to work with them. Jim, you know what? I love your story. I love how passionate you are about your beautiful wife, and how you absolutely want to be everything you can. God, you're the kind of person I would really, really love to work with. So Is it okay? Now, permission. Is it okay if I tell you how that could happen? Jim's like, yes. And I'd say, okay, so I want you to think about, so you could just go into an offer, but if you think you need a little contrast, I would say, okay, so Jim, here's what I want you to think. Imagine 6 months goes by and you don't work with me. What's going to happen? And Jim's like, oh, and what else? And what else? And what else? And I basically want to take him to the like, oh shit, the horrible place where he's just like, oh God. And I say, okay, let's imagine another path. You hire me. Okay, so here's what I do. I sell in chunks. Okay. I will talk about what he wants, but I more so talk about the container of what it's like to work with me. So I'll show you how that goes. Okay, so Jim, imagine 6 months go by and you've hired me. And I want you to imagine that when you have gotten in doubt or fear, you reach out, you have my cell phone, you find me on Facebook, and you're not alone. What would that be like? He's like, oh God, that would help so much. And say, okay, cool. And then imagine you don't have to sit down and go, I don't know what I'm working on, or I don't know how to market. You and I strategize. So you have plans, you have goals, you know exactly what you're working on next. What would that be like? Oh my God. I would just feel okay, cool. See how so I want you to think about what are the chunks of working with you. So if you had certain chunks and you were like, you get supported, you feel this, you feel that, you feel that. What are those specific chunks? That's like such an important thing because um, this way you're in the like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh, I want that so badly. Does that make sense? So think of your chunks. So that's how you roll the offer. And they're like, so again, I don't sell the features of the program until later. So I say, what can you imagine this? Would you like this? Would you like this? And then they're like, oh my God. And then the next thing they say, I'll say, can I tell you what that would look like? Boom. Then I'm making the offer. Does that make sense to you? So think about what chunks do you deliver? Okay, let me find this again. Wait, right here. Okay, hold on, share. Okay, so you paint the picture, you sell in chunks, and you get the buy-in before you make the offer. And like I just said, is it okay? I'd love to work with you. Can I tell you what's possible? Yes, that's the most important thing. Okay, so let me go here. Wait, I missed it. What did I miss? Hold on. I think I'm on the wrong slide. No, I'm not. Where did I go? Hold on 1 second. I gotta jump off because I'm not on the right slide. Hold on. I gotta take a break for a second. Okay, I'm just gonna go find my right slide. Okay, here we go. Here we go. If I can find, I can see it on my. Here we go. Here we are. The little glitches. Okay, diving deep, piercing the veil. Breakdown number 4. You're selling the service. We just talked about that. The fix, paint the picture. Okay. And I don't know why the slides end. That's so funny. Okay. Well, I'll just be real. There's another slide at the end. And the other slide should be step 5 is this is when you handle objections. And so where the breakdowns are is you leave the room. I remember when somebody would say, I would think about it, I'd be like, okay, all right, I'm sorry. I just okay. Or if they say, that's a lot of money, I'd go like, oh, I would freeze. I didn't know what to do. So one of the most important things I've learned in objection handling, I love objection handling, is think about how hard that was for them to say. Right. It's really hard, especially as women, to go, I don't understand. It's too much. I don't know if I can do it. They already feel like losers because they may not have the money and they don't want to disappoint you and they really like you and they feel guilty and right. That's why in the beginning I say it's okay to say no. So I was taught every objection is a gift and you honor every objection and you thank them for it. So they say, oof, that's a lot of money. You say, yeah, it is. Thank you. Thank you. I agree. Right? So you don't ever fight them. You know, the olden days, it was like guerrilla selling or stealth selling. And it was literally like Okay, here we are. You're the poor little person looking for coaching, and I got to trap you and catch you in your, that is horrible, horrible. So the way I envision it, so it's you and me, and you have an objection. And so imagine that there's like in the olden days, it was them again, like we had to catch them and trap them, and we're gonna get them. Like I'm gonna get the sale, right? So what I envision is it's you and I say, come here, come around, and we're gonna just, here's a table. Let me just get a little rock here. Here's a table, and here's the, oh, I said it's not a pretty rock. Here's a pretty rock. So here's a table, and here's the objections. Why don't you and I come over here? So we're sitting in the same side of the table. It's you and I together, not against the objection, but you and I in conversation about the objection. So I'm off the hook for like capturing you or getting you. And I just go, okay, so let's talk about this. So I'd lean in because I think I used to be really afraid of objections, like, oh no. And now I just lean in. So I'll give you one of the greatest things that some of the stuff I do, it just falls out of my mouth. And I'm like, where did that come from? Well, that was pretty cool. So a woman, I was on the phone with her where she was literally booking a VIP day. So she was flying out from California. I was going to call her Sandy. So Sandy's coming out. We're in the calendar booking the dates. I'm telling her all about it. She's pulling up airlines, and then she goes, I probably shouldn't do this. Now, the old me would have been like, okay, I'm sorry. Call me. Right. I would have gotten weak and something fell out of my mouth. And I just said, so we were like, you were totally yes to this. We were booking, like we were making it happen. So what just happened here? Because you worked fully in and then something, you took yourself out. So what just happened? Tell me about that. And she said, oh my God, that is so weird. I have this pattern. I don't say yes to myself. It's this pattern, and I do this all the time. I just take myself out of my good and I sabotage myself. And I say, okay, what can I do to help you break the pattern? She goes, let me give you my credit card. So again, the old me would have said, oh God, she's not sure. Okay, as opposed to, hold on. See what I mean? Now, every objection is different, but the more I lean in, the more I'm like, okay, tell me more about that. Like, so for example, if somebody says, I have to ask my husband, I don't do the, well, you have a fast acting bonus. I'll give you $500 off. I think that's shitty and manipulative because there are people that actually legit have to ask. There are rules of their relationship. And so I always say, because imagine a poor woman's like, I'll have to ask my husband how bad that must feel. And so I say, you know what? I just really want to acknowledge that for you. I clearly you have agreements in your relationship, and I think it's awesome that you're honoring that. I love that. So what have I done? I take the objection and I go, cool, good for you, smart of you. And then I'll say, so what do you think your husband's gonna want to know? What will they object to? What will their concerns be? And then I basically arm the woman. Here's what you could tell them. Because I've had so many people say, well, my husband says that I've had coaching before and it's never going to work. And I go, I get it. Makes sense. Tell them this, boom, 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 boom. And they're convinced, right? Another objection is often, I have to think about it. And again, don't do the stupid, well, I'll give you a bonus if you sign today, because that's so dishonoring to people. Some people legit need 24 hours to process. Some people need to go through their financial books or whatever. Some people are not impetuous, quick decision makers. So how dare you make them wrong, right? So let me take a sip of water. Okay, so if somebody says I have to think about it, I say, awesome. Is there something specific that I didn't share with you that you need to think about? Or are you just thinking about the price? Because I might have missed something. They might go like, I don't understand. Like, I don't even know how you do the work. I'm like, oh my gosh. Then I eat it. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, that's totally on me. I apologize. I didn't, let me go deeper with this part of it. Or they'll say, well, I have to think about it. I say, what else do you have to think about? Do I have time? Okay, so let me tell you about the time consideration. Okay, how do you see me? I have to think about boom, boom, boom. Okay. So I always honor their process. And then I say, okay, so here's what I don't like. I don't want an open loop. I like to have, things kind of closed. And I don't want to be, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. And I don't want to feel uncomfortable wondering if you're going to do it or not, or like, I don't like any of that. And so how long do you need? And they'll say, well, it's Thursday. I can get back to you by Monday. I'll know by Monday. And I say, okay, cool. Now here's what I say. If it's a yes or if it's a no, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just requesting that you let me know by Monday. Now, if they say, I don't know, I'm like 3 weeks, they're not going to think about it. That's their way of, I never have that because I've now gotten so good at like, you get to say no. And most people, they really want to work with me already. But if somebody says, I don't know, a few weeks, they're likely not a client, right? And that's just say they say, here's another one. They say, I don't think so right now. And I say, okay, is it a no forever? Like you would never want to do this, or is it a no for just now? And they'll say, well, see, the thing is, I'm traveling and I'm super busy. And I say, okay, so how about like, I don't know, like in November, should I reach back out again? Because some people are like, should I reach that? Do I call them? And so is it a no for now or no forever? Is this just not the right fit, or is it just not the right time? So those are how I handle objections. Those are the problems and the solutions. Okay, this was super fun. So I just want to let you know, I don't have this, I have run this program so many times. I don't have a current program of this. But any of these things, if you have trouble owning your value, if you have trouble, like most people can figure out how to ask the questions, but you might have trouble rolling out your offers, right? You might have trouble in that conversation. So anything related to this, if you just want to book a session with me, I'm happy to like, we could clear stuff, we could do rehearsal. Like if you're just gonna go, okay, that thing you did in that webinar, and I will give you a special gift price of just $250, and that's way lower than my regular rates. One time only. If you want to just have a one-time call, I could get you up to speed. I can literally grow your sales ability, I promise. And in 1 hour, I can make some big changes for you. So reach out if you're interested in that. And I hope to see you next month. The next month community call is around self-love and how it relates to business. Crazy, huh? All right, lots of love. Thanks for watching. And I want to hear your feedback. Remember, I started by saying, what did you learn? What do you takeaways? Is there any place you're still confused or have questions? So ask questions and reach out if you want to book a call. Okay. Much love. Bye now.